My name is Jesse and my hair went from this all the way to this. And in the journey, I've also had a hair transplant. And recently someone asked me if they are too old to get a hair transplant. So I'm gonna talk about it in this video and tell you why that isn't the case. So let's dive in. Are you too old for a hair transplant? Hair loss affects millions or billions of men worldwide, especially those in their 30s and 40s. But it can also happen later, like 50s for example, or earlier in your 20s. It started for me in my 20s. But some delay treating hair loss for years and then wonder if they've waited too long. But the truth is that age isn't the number one factor you should worry about. So let's dive in. Why isn't age the real question? And I'm gonna answer that in 3 parts. The first part is that age doesn't equal progression. Your hair loss pattern evolves over years. So what happens if you have androgenic alopecia? Androgenic alopecia is basically hair loss in a pattern which is genetic, and it's classified as a genetic progressive disorder. So when you have it, it also gets worse with time. Where you stand today matters way more than when you start losing hair. But maybe it started earlier for you, in which case the hair loss may be more aggressive. And if you are listening to it while you are young, this is a really important video to tell you what you should do right now. Then there's also individual hair factors. And the thing is, everyone's situation is unique. Your donor area, your donor density, the size, hair coarseness, so how thick it is it curly or straight, the skin color or hair color. So for example, if you have a lighter toned skin but you have darker hair like I have, the hair loss becomes more obvious because of the contrast in color basically. And then third is also clinic choice. And so even in the best scenario, a bad hair transplant clinic or a hair mill can still severely screw you over. And we are talking about over harvesting, low graft survival, or mega sessions for example, or even infection. And I see way too many infection cases in the hair loss subreddit these days, and I don't want you to be one of them. So factor 1, age doesn't equal progression. I would highly recommend to focus on maintenance first. The good clinics, the reputable clinics, don't want to operate on you if you have progressing hair loss. So they should 99 of 95%, something like that, force you to or tell you to maintain before you do anything else. Or if you absolutely insist, they inform you incredibly well about the risks of not maintaining. And so what are the risks of not maintaining? Is that you keep the hair transplant itself, but you lose the rest of your hair. And so what happens is that, for example, you get your hairline fixed once, but then you still continue to lose hair all over. And then a couple of years later, you walk around with the full horseshoe pattern, something like that, with just a couple hairs on top. And then you look quite ridiculous. And I know how ridiculous it does look because my dad looks the exact same. He had a hair transplant done, but he never maintained. And now he is full horseshoe pattern with only a couple hairs on top. So if you can avoid that, I would highly recommend it. So how do you maintain? Well, I'm gonna say that something that may be a little bit controversial, but please don't bother with natural treatments. And I really get why they're popular, but if you rely on them, you will only waste your time. And even more so with the natural argument, like not everything in nature is good for you. You can argue that snake venom is natural, but it's also not good for you. It may hurt you a lot or maybe even kill you. So I just wanted to share that just because something is natural doesn't mean it's good for you. It's mainly used by marketers who are trying to prey on your fears and actually get you to waste time, you know? And there's a reason why they are not first to be recommended. It's because they most often don't work. If they did work, they would be recommended instantly for everyone, but it's not the case for a very clear reason. And so what I recommend is to wait a year. Start real treatments, which are finasteride or dutasteride. I personally prefer finasteride first to get started, and then it may take like 12 months to show results or maintenance. And 12 months is a long time, but we are also talking about your future looks for decades to come. So a year isn't really that much. A year also goes by pretty quickly. And so why do I say 12 months? Well, when I started finasteride, for example, I took a picture of my hair, and then a year later, I took the exact same picture by accident, actually. But that was the only time that I could see that I actually got some regrowth from finasteride. But otherwise, I wouldn't have ever known because it was so slow. And if I just look in the mirror, then I wouldn't see the difference, you know? So I would take like around a year to really show results, or maintenance. Maintenance is still good. Maintenance is the key. Any regrowth, it's just a bonus. So how do you follow progress? I recommend that you take good progress pictures every month and then compare those over a year and then see the difference. If you want to know how to take good progress pictures, by the way, I have a video on this channel that goes very deep into a specific subject on how you can take good ones. And also the fourth step, take action while you can. Please don't wait until you are this far gone where you are pretty much null with 7, because at that point you may not have enough donor area to actually get it covered. Take action while you can. So next, individual hair factors. The main question that people ask is, how many grafts do I need? And we're talking again like donor area, hair coarseness, curly straight, skin hair, hair color, everything like that. And all of these impact your result, but it's not just all of these, it's also just one of these. So for example, if you have 2 men that are exactly the same, but one man has really thick hair and the other has very thin hair, both of them get a hair transplant with 2000 grafts, then the man with really thick hair will get an amazing results, like wow, that looks so natural. But then if you look at the man with thin hair, you're like, huh, that's pretty weird. The hairline is really dense, you can look straight through it, and that may not be the fault of the hair transplant itself. That may just be the problem with the hair characteristics that we have to work with. And so in that case, the men with thinner hair may need to adjust expectations or get another hair transplant in the future. It may just take a little bit more work. Then how to assess donor area. I would just recommend to get clinics to look at it. Don't take your own pictures, don't share them on the internet. Well, of course you can do that, but if you share them in hair loss forums, there's still almost nothing to really talk about, because again, that is just a surface level that we are looking at. And also don't rely on AI. What I sometimes see is people promoting their own AI tools, like, hey, just upload your picture here and you can assess your donor area or how many grafts you need. But the thing is, it also doesn't tell you everything, because AI cannot see below the surface. If you get it checked, just go to a hair transplant clinic, because they deal with it every single day. And the third point is density. The higher the transplanted density, the better the result. But it's also more difficult. So generally, good donor hair, or at least hair that isn't impacted by androgenic alopecia, has around 200 hairs per square centimeter. Average hair transplant density is between 65 and 80. And before you look at it and think like, whoa, that's way too low, that's not dense at all, just remember that normally we have around 200 hairs per square centimeter, and that before we notice any hair loss, you've likely already lost more than half of it. So by the time you're at 100 grafts per square centimeter, that's only the time where you're like, oh yeah, maybe I see some hair loss. So don't get too caught up in those numbers. The third point is clinic choice. And so I would just want to create an example in your head, because you can lose it at the finish line. So this is an example of the 24 Hours of Le Mans race in 2016. This was the lead car, the lead Toyota, and he lost and he had engine problems with less than 3 minutes to go. You can see it right here, 2 minutes and 48 seconds to go. So he was comfortably leading, could easily win, and then on the final lap, or the second to final lap, he got engine problems and then lost the entire race. And so that's what I want to tell you as well. You can have amazing hair characteristics, like everything is in your favor, but if you screw up the clinic choice, then you can still lose the race. So what I want to share with you instead is the solution. What I wanted to suggest is this is a cheat code. Great clinics focus on imperfection. And we all know the classic straight hairline from Turkey, and I absolutely hate that hairline because it's just not natural at all. Real hairlines are slightly asymmetrical, like they are slightly skewed. They're also soft. They don't start instantly. They start with a little bit of imperfection. They are also curved. They are not straight. So if you talk to a clinic, listen to what they come up with to make your hair transplant result look more natural. It's their duty to tell you how they're gonna do that, because that shows how they will work on you. And if they don't do that, for example, they just put you in a chair and then they draw some kind of straight hairline and then they are like, okay, yeah, this is exactly what you're gonna get. I've had this with consults myself. Then I would just run away from those clinics because they don't care at all. They just care about their bottom line. And so what is the actual sweet spot age? Well, I think it's around 25 to 50. You don't want to do it much younger than 25 because in that case you may have severely fast progressing hair loss, which you cannot really solve with hair transplant. And above 50, it may be a little bit difficult for you because the older we are, the more difficult it is to heal, which also impacts the overall end results. So I just want to focus on maintenance because great foundations can hold skyscrapers. If you start early and you are maintaining very well, you are setting up for amazing results, but you have to maintain first. Then also the hair characteristics, and I would just lean into your situation. If you have really thin hair and you may need multiple hair transplants, that may just be the case. You may just need multiple hair transplants to get what you ultimately want. And then also pick a great clinic. And then choose clinics that focus on your long-term looks instead of just your own wallets, like I said before. And this is an example that proves it's possible. So Gordon Ramsay had a hair transplant done in his late 40s or early 50s. You can see it right here. In the 2000s, it looked all right. 2006, you can see some pretty severe recession going on. 2014, a little bit difficult because of his hairstyle, but I believe there's still some recession going on. And then in 2022, you can see this right here. This is just an absolutely amazing example of what is possible. And you can see that he also didn't wait until it was too long. He had it done while it was still savable. You know, I wish I would have done the same, because if I started the right action, like finasteride, if I started at 19 instead of 25, I wouldn't be looking into 6 figures in hair transplant. So yeah, that's a top tip right there. And I also want to share very quickly what hair loss actually is about. So hair loss isn't about looks, it's about your self-identity. If you use your hair to create your identity, like a specific style, for example, like the kind of person you want to be, then losing your hair may actually remove that identity, and that's where most of the stress with people that experience hair loss, that's where the stress comes from. And when you are dealing with that, you may hear people around you saying like, oh, just shave it off or just deal with it. But those aren't recommendations. Those are just ideas. And I've spent years trying to deal with it, like long hair, short hair, wearing hats, shaving it. But every time I did something different, I realized that it wasn't for me. I genuinely tried to accept it, but I couldn't. I genuinely couldn't. So don't force yourself to accept it as well. It's okay to not accept it. And these are the next steps. So first, get a professional assessment. Use qualified surgeons to evaluate for your specific situation. Don't guess about your candidacy. I just want to add on this, if you do actually maintain, your chances of being a good hair transplant candidate, they improve like 1,000-fold. 1,000-fold. I'm not actually kidding. So please don't guess about it, actually get it checked. Next, you should do your research. So please avoid clinics with simple red flags. Choose clinics that focus on your long-term looks. Quality matters more than price in hair restoration, and you can point to a hair transplant that have been ruined at a budget of 3K, but I also recently saw one hair transplant that was 13K and was still ruined or botched. And then make an informed decision. When you know the facts, when you've been looking at it for a while, then you can choose confidently, but don't just choose the first clinic you encounter. Please don't do that. Your hair restoration journey starts with knowledge, and it also takes a lot of volume. It is such an important decision that you need to make. Please don't rush this. And then take action, and actually take action while you can. Stop procrastinating. If you aren't maintaining, focus on maintenance. If you want to get a hair transplant done, focus on doing your research. Every year you wait limits your future options. And again, because the older you get, the more difficult it is to heal. Please do that as quickly as you can. So how do you start your hair restoration journey? First, I would just focus on doing your research first. Do some brainstorming. Talk to someone who's been in your shoes. Talk to someone who has had a hair transplant themselves and learn from them. That is so incredibly important. And even if you don't talk to anyone, just remember this: keep your standards high. So when I got all these consultations done, I visited multiple clinics, and then one of them eventually ended up as the one, basically. But I knew that my case was very difficult to operate on. I knew I needed a lot of work. And so when I look back at all the consultations, I didn't choose these specific clinic just because they were the best. I chose them because they were the least bad, basically. And when I realized that, because I kept my standards very high, I was like, I need to find another clinic. And then I restarted my research, found another clinic, and that's finally when I found a real professional. So just do this. Make sure you do your research, do some brainstorming with someone, and just keep your standards high. Your standards should be high because this is an incredibly important decision that you need to make. And choosing clinics is honestly a minefield. There are so many scammy clinics out there that it's very difficult to choose the right one. So if you want to talk about choosing your dream hair transplant clinic and do it right the first time, go to folliclefix.com/talk. There's also a link below in the description. Just click there, book a call, and I will talk to you and see what we can do together. After the call, you will also receive a complete list that I've created of 60 hair transplant clinic red flags that you can use in your own research. So yeah, basically that's the video. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you want to see next, and see you in the next video.